Have you ever wondered why the days of a purely white America are over? What if I told you that the future of the United States will be more diverse than ever before, and there's no turning back? In this video, we'll dive deep into the fascinating demographic shifts happening across the nation, exploring how immigration, cultural evolution, and birth rates are reshaping what it means to be American. Stay tuned as we uncover why America will never be white again, and what this means for the country's future. The demographic transformation of the United States is happening at an unprecedented pace, largely driven by younger generations who are far more diverse than their predecessors. While older white Americans still hold a significant share of political and economic power, the landscape is rapidly shifting as millennials and Generation Z begin to dominate the workforce. Nearly half of these younger Americans belong to ethnic minorities, reflecting a broader shift in the nation's population. This change is not just demographic, it signals a profound transformation in political ideologies, economic priorities, and social norms that will define the country's future. As these diverse generations come of age, their values and experiences will shape the policies and power structures that influence America's place in the world. Politically, these younger groups tend to be more progressive, supporting issues like racial equality, climate action, and economic reform. This generational shift is already visible in the rise of younger, more diverse politicians at local and national levels. The changes in political leadership and public opinion suggest that the United States will gradually move away from the traditional power structures that have long been dominated by older white Americans. Economically, the workforce is evolving in tandem with these demographic changes. The influx of younger, ethnically diverse workers is altering the job market, consumer behaviors, and even entrepreneurial trends. Many industries are increasingly catering to multicultural audiences, driving innovation and creating new opportunities for economic growth. However, this transition also presents challenges, particularly in addressing economic disparities that disproportionately affect minority communities. To secure America's future prosperity, it will be crucial to invest in education, job training, and economic policies that support this emerging diverse workforce. In the broader global context, the diversification of America's population positions the country to become a more dynamic player on the world stage. As the U.S. becomes more reflective of global cultures, its ability to engage with and influence other nations will increase. The new generation's understanding of multiple languages, cultures, and perspectives will enhance America's role in international diplomacy, trade, and collaboration. To thrive in this new era, the U.S. must embrace its evolving identity and rebuild its social and economic systems to reflect the multicultural reality of its future. Donald Trump's rise to the presidency in 2016 tapped into a wave of support from older white Americans, particularly those over the age of 45. Many in this demographic were drawn to his promises of reviving the economy and bringing back jobs to communities that had seen economic decline. However, it wasn't just economic concerns that fueled their support. Trump's stance on immigration and political correctness resonated deeply with older voters who were uneasy about the rapidly changing demographics of the United States. His rhetoric about cracking down on illegal immigration and restoring traditional American values appealed to a generation that felt increasingly alienated by the cultural shifts taking place in the country. This generational divide became more apparent in various surveys and polls. For instance, a 2011 Pew Research Center study revealed that more than half of baby boomers and older Americans viewed the growing number of immigrants as a threat to American values and customs. Many believed that the country was losing its cultural identity as the number of foreign-born residents increased. The PRRI survey in 2015 echoed similar sentiments, finding that older white Americans were more likely to think that American culture and values were worse off than they had been in the 1950s. For these voters, Trump's message of "Make America Great Again" struck a chord, as it promised a return to a time they perceived as more stable and familiar. However, despite these fears, the reality is that America's future depends on its younger, more ethnically diverse generations. The U.S. population is becoming increasingly multicultural, with Hispanics, African Americans, Asians, and other minority groups accounting for a significant portion of the country's growth. These groups are vital to the future workforce and will play a critical role in driving the country's economy forward. While older generations may view this demographic shift with skepticism, the younger generations are already shaping the future of the country, bringing in new perspectives, innovation, and energy that will fuel economic growth in the coming decades. In fact, economists have pointed out that the country's economic prosperity will rely heavily on these ethnically diverse generations. As the baby boomer generation ages and retires, younger workers, many of whom are from immigrant families or ethnic minorities, will be crucial in filling the labor force. The cultural and racial diversity of this new generation will also spur creativity and global competitiveness, allowing the U.S. to maintain its status as an economic powerhouse. While the older generation may fear change, the reality is that America's strength has always been rooted in its ability to adapt and thrive in diversity. The decline of the white population in the United States is a significant demographic shift that is already beginning to unfold. With the median age of whites now at 43 years old, it's clear that the population is aging rapidly. As birth rates fall, and the number of white women of reproductive age declines, this trend is expected to accelerate in the coming years. The generational divide is stark. While half of the white population is over 43, minority groups such as Hispanics and mixed-race Americans are much younger, with median ages of 29 and 20 respectively. This age gap highlights the increasing youth and diversity of the American population as a whole. In just 8 years, experts predict that the white population will start to shrink, with more deaths than births among this group. The number of white children under the age of 18 is already in decline, signaling a long-term trend of demographic change. This is largely due to the decreasing number of white women in their prime childbearing years, which will continue to impact birth rates for years to come. Meanwhile, other racial and ethnic groups, especially Hispanics and mixed-race individuals, are growing at faster rates, reshaping the country's demographic makeup. What stands out most in this shift is the rapid aging of the white population. By 2030, the number of whites over 65 will rise by an astonishing 42%, while the working-age white population will see only modest growth of about 9%. This imbalance will create a growing dependency of older white Americans on younger, more racially diverse generations. As the aging population retires and exits the workforce, the burden of supporting social services, healthcare, and the economy will increasingly fall on younger minority populations who are now becoming the backbone of the nation. This demographic shift also brings about significant societal changes. The growing racial diversity in younger generations will influence politics, culture, and the workforce in ways that will challenge the long-standing dominance of a predominantly white America. As the population ages and becomes more diverse, the United States will continue to evolve into a more multicultural society, where younger generations of different races and ethnicities play an increasingly central role in shaping the future of the country. The demographic shift happening in the United States is not just about numbers. It's a transformation that is shaping the future of the country's workforce, economy, and social structure. In the coming years, the majority of children born in the U.S. will be from ethnic minorities. This is already becoming evident, as nearly half of America's youth today come from minority backgrounds. As white baby boomers retire and exit the workforce, these minority groups, particularly Latinos, will increasingly fill the gaps in the economy. They will drive economic growth, contribute to tax revenues, and sustain pension funds and healthcare systems that support the aging population. However, this shift also brings forth significant challenges, especially when it comes to education and workforce preparation. Many children from minority backgrounds attend underfunded schools that lack the necessary resources to provide them with a quality education. This inequality in educational opportunities can have long-term consequences, as it affects their ability to compete in the job market and move into middle-class positions. While the numbers of Latino and Black students enrolling in higher education are growing, they still lag behind their white peers. Without adequate financial resources and guidance, many find it difficult to pursue higher education or access career opportunities that would offer them economic mobility. Income inequality among ethnic minorities remains a pressing issue, and it's one that threatens to persist if left unaddressed. Many minority families face systemic barriers that prevent them from reaching economic stability. These barriers include unequal access to quality education, limited job prospects, and a lack of financial literacy. The income gap between whites and minorities, particularly Latinos and African Americans, is stark, and without targeted efforts to reduce this inequality, the divide is likely to grow. Addressing these disparities will be crucial not only for the future of minority groups, but also for the overall health of the U.S. economy. As minorities become the majority of the economically active population, their well-being will directly influence the nation's future. Ensuring that minority groups have access to quality education, job training, and financial resources is essential to maintaining a robust economy. This demographic shift requires policymakers to rethink how public funds are allocated, particularly in areas like education, healthcare, and social services, to support a more equitable and prosperous society. The United States is undergoing a significant demographic transformation, driven largely by the younger generations of new minorities, Latinos, Asians, and mixed-race Americans. These groups are interacting with older minorities and white populations as they seek opportunities in a rapidly changing landscape. With a growing need for young workers to support an aging population, the presence of these new minorities is essential for the country's economic and social future. Their contributions are not only reshaping the workforce but also the cultural fabric of the nation as they bring diverse perspectives and traditions into the mainstream. A notable factor behind this shift is the sharp rise in population caused by recent waves of immigration and a slightly increased birth rate among minority groups. This growth has been particularly pronounced in southern and western states, where the child population has dramatically increased due to the influx of minority families. States like Texas, California, and Arizona are experiencing a surge in diversity, with younger generations of Latinos and Asians becoming a dominant part of the school-age population. These regions are benefiting from a youthful and dynamic demographic, which is vital for future economic growth and stability. In contrast, the northeastern and midwestern states are facing a different reality. In these regions, the majority of children are still white, but their numbers are dwindling. Declining birth rates among the white population, combined with lower levels of immigration, are resulting in a shrinking youth population. Without significant births or the influx of minority migrants, many areas in these regions are seeing slower growth, and in some cases, population decline. This imbalance between regions highlights the growing demographic divide in the United States, where the South and West are becoming increasingly diverse, while the North and Midwest struggle to maintain their population levels. The demographic changes are reshaping not only the workforce but also the political and social landscape of the country. As younger generations of minorities grow in numbers, they are likely to have a profound impact on American politics, education, and culture. Their presence brings new challenges and opportunities for integration, as the country adapts to a future where racial and ethnic diversity becomes the norm. This transformation is not only inevitable but necessary, as the United States continues to evolve into a more inclusive and multicultural society. The United States is experiencing a dramatic increase in its young and working population, a trend that sets it apart from most other industrialized nations. While many developed countries face stagnation or even decline in their working-age populations, the U.S. is projected to see continued growth. The current population of the United States stands at about 325 million, having increased by nearly 100 million since 1980. By mid-century, that number is expected to reach 400 million. This rapid expansion is in stark contrast to countries like Japan, Germany, Italy, and the UK, where populations are aging, birth rates are low, and immigration remains limited. What makes the U.S. growth particularly unique is that it is largely fueled by young minorities, especially Latinos and Asians. Without these groups, the U.S. would be facing a demographic challenge similar to that of other industrialized nations, with a shrinking working-age population. Between 2010 and 2030, the U.S. working-age population is expected to grow by more than 5% per year, a rate significantly higher than that of many other developed countries. This influx of young workers is essential for maintaining a healthy economy as they contribute to both labor force participation and consumption, driving business growth and innovation. The economic implications of this demographic shift are substantial. As the working-age population continues to expand, it helps support economic growth through increased production, consumption, and demand for goods and services. This youthful and diverse workforce brings energy, new ideas, and entrepreneurial spirit, which are critical for sustaining America's global competitiveness. Moreover, industries like technology, healthcare, and construction are likely to benefit from this growing labor force as younger generations fill vital roles that will drive innovation and expansion. In addition to the economic benefits, this demographic transformation is reshaping American society in profound ways. The cultural diversity introduced by these new minorities enriches the social fabric of the country, fostering a more inclusive and globally minded population. As Latinos, Asians, and other minority groups become a larger share of the workforce and population, they bring with them unique perspectives, traditions, and skills that help create a more dynamic and adaptive society. In the long run, this diversity will be key to addressing the challenges of the future and positioning the United States for sustained growth and success. The United States is undergoing a seismic demographic shift, one that will fundamentally reshape its identity in the coming decades. While a cultural generation gap may persist in the short term, the reality of a rapidly changing population suggests that demography is destiny. The nation's growing diversity, driven by rising immigration, shifting birth rates, and increasing interracial relationships, is ushering in a new era where minority groups will eventually make up the majority. This shift will impact everything from the workplace to the political landscape, redefining what it means to be American. At the heart of this transformation is what many scholars refer to as a diversity explosion. This explosion is not just about the changing racial and ethnic composition of the population, but also about how this diversity will affect every aspect of American society. Schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods are already reflecting this new reality, as young minority populations are becoming the driving force behind economic and cultural growth. The implications are far-reaching. From education to healthcare and even the arts, America's future success will depend on how it embraces and integrates this growing diversity. For the United States to thrive in the coming years, investments in young minority populations are essential. Government leaders, policymakers, and communities must recognize that the future of the nation lies in ensuring equitable opportunities for all. This includes improving access to quality education, healthcare, and career pathways for minorities who will soon be the backbone of the workforce. The U.S., more than any other country, stands on the brink of a demographic transformation, and the choices made today will determine whether this new America will be one of opportunity and unity, or division and inequality. In conclusion, the demographic changes sweeping across America are inevitable and will shape the future of the nation in profound ways. Embracing diversity and investing in the next generation is key to building a more inclusive and prosperous society. If you found this topic insightful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video for more thought-provoking content.